Hey everyone, welcome in to another Stock Talk episode with Quinton Hennigh, investor, geologist, and geologic advisor to Crescat Capital. As we are doing now on a very regular basis, I chat with Quinton about different stocks, resource stocks that you have all sent in. I want to thank all of you for sending in all of these companies. Boy, oh boy, we have a lot still on the list, almost 20 companies that Quinton and I still need to get to. But this segment, we're going to be going through three different stocks. I'm going to be flipping through the PowerPoints again because a lot of you said that you enjoyed that format. I'm trying to clean it up and make it a little bit higher quality here. Hopefully that happens in this interview. And in this Stock Talk segment, we are focusing on silver companies. We're going to be talking about Impact Silver, going to be talking about SilverX Mining and Capitan Silver. So we're starting off with two miners and filtering into more of an exploration play. Quinton, thank you very much, as always, for taking time to go through these companies with us. And everyone, please keep sending me the companies to my email address, fleck@kereport.com. Quinton, first things first, let's go to Impact Silver. Now, this company, they've been around for a while. As we can see here, 18 years of exploration and production success in Mexico. One aspect about Impact Silver that I give them credit for is that the company adjusts their mining, their production profile depending on metals prices. So when metals prices are low, the company slows down on some of their production. When they're high, they increase production. But Quinton, I'm going to let you take it over here. This company is producing in Mexico, two operating mines. What's your rundown of the company, please?
Certainly. Look, I've known the company for quite a few years now. Know some of the management there, and I've reviewed their project in detail. I know that the potential of this district is quite large. It's kind of a unique one in that it's got two different styles of veins that are very closely spatially associated with one another. So they got the silver dominant vein system, but they also have a gold expression as well. It's got huge exploration upside. I think it is, on the scale of something like, say, Vizsla, something, around that, in terms of its areal extent and the number of veins and the density of veining that you see and such. It reminds me a lot of that. Now, the veins are relatively skinny. Okay, most of the veins are kind of meter to 2 meter type veins. Grades are pretty good, not super good, but they're pretty good. And it is a district that, in my view, in an upticking silver market could do very well, especially the companies the production with exploration.
Quentin, one thing that stands out to me too is this early on slide here. I've heard from a couple other investors in the space that when the silver market's washed out, unfortunately, so is the share price. But when silver starts to run, look at some of these gains that this stock gets. You combine that with the share price being the lowest since 2005. Do you see opportunity in this when you have a stock so leveraged to one commodity?
That's kind of the point. You've hit the nail on the head. I was trying to make that earlier, but as the silver price is upticking like this, you can see a stock like this, basically see exceptional gains. As we see on the chart here, hundreds or what is that? Lowest is 6 bagger, it looks like, then a 9 bagger, there's a 15 bagger, and an 11 bagger. Wow. Okay. That's the kind of uptick I would expect out of a stock like this. You can see from the chart right away. Yeah, looks like we're due for another uptick. And certainly, this is one of these stories that has that exposure to silver. And while it's, kind of like waiting, the time arrives and the time is getting near, right? So there's a good chance to get in.
Let's talk about the new acquisition, this Plomosas mine that was acquired last year. As we can see here, this is a bit of that divergence you're talking about from being more silver focused. This is more zinc focused with lead and silver as byproducts. Have you dove into this Plomosas mine at all or some of the metrics around that?
I do know it somewhat. Okay, particularly well, yes, I know it because I was looking at some of the early zinc production that was coming out of this. There was talk of where they could ship it. So we were looking at it, and look, it's not a huge operation. Okay, this is a pretty modest scale. You can see the photograph there towards the center. The mill, this is something that does a wee bit over 100 tons a day, I believe. So, 160 if I remember right, something like that. It's going to need a bit of love. Okay, the operation needs to be recapitalized, at least some. It's not huge, but I think it needs some capital. But it is the kind of district or deposit that should generate pretty good returns in a nice silver market, and that's where we're headed. So it's really much in line with the other assets they have here, Guadalupe and the.
So, Quentin, when we do see something like the Guadalupe mine, I'll move down to here where I believe it's 5 mines feeding one processing plant or a couple processing plants. How do you take away from that sort of scale where it is multiple feed for the actual production?
Well, this is where it does get interesting. In fact, area around the Guadalupe plant, or Guadalupe mine, this is where the kind of hybrid gold and silver districts overlap. So, look, you got to have ores that are metallurgically compatible with any particular mill. In this case, memory serves, the mill, primarily focuses on generating high precious metal concentrates. So, and I think they're bulk concentrate, but it's a modest scale. As long as the ores that are available are compatible, you can make a hub and spoke kind of milling process like this work pretty easily. You do have to kind of make sure you're on top of the game when it comes time to process different ores from different locations. But this is a district scale hub and spoke setting for sure.
Let's talk exploration upside then. There's a slide in here that is all about exploration and the potential. Here we go, the significant exploration upside. Talk to us about some of the exploration. I know that's what you like to focus on. Where do you see the best potential here?
It is. Look, and this is what I was focused on a few years ago. We had a stake in Impact Silver. Look, when I first looked at this, I did a deep dive, and I felt that the scale of this property, if you look at the scale bar down there, 5 kilometers for that black bar, and compare it to, say, Vizsla, this is a very similar scale. You also see, just a myriad of veins here, many, many veins, that clearly need exploration. Look, I think if we scroll down through the next couple of slides, I can talk about specific targets in general. But one thing I will say is that the company, needs to find its sweet spot between production, the small scale production they have, and actually exploring. Okay, because I think what I saw the company do is, say in 2020 when the market was hot, they raised money on the premise that they could go out and explore, and then silver, came off over the course of the next couple of years, and they really pulled in their horns, and like you said, they kind of downscaled, and so we didn't see that that exploration come to fruition. Okay, but this Alacran mine, is definitely has a lot of targets around it. I'm not going to speak to specific targets. There's a lot of targets around it that I think could, be just wonderful bonanza grade targets. Some of them are actually accessible from surface. Like these things are potentially open pitable to a degree. And then the Guadalupe mine, look, many targets in the local area. That one's seen a bit more money, but I think there's a photograph. Maybe it's the next one. Go down one slide there, and we'll talk about.
One more.
Yeah, there we go. This Veta Negra. There we go. Sorry. Whoop. Back
Oh,
up.
one more. There you go.
Up, up, up.
Yeah, I think you're just
Up.
on a bit of a delay.
Okay, I'm on a lag. I see. Okay, this is what I mean. This thing, this Veta Negra, clearly has an open pit potential to it. Pretty good grades of silver. I'm not actually sure how much they've actually mined in open pit to date, but this kind of caught my attention. Um, the target underneath here, I mean, basically this is a virgin vein system in this area. So what they're looking at here is basically easily accessible ores that could help feed the mill. But it was what was below that really caught my attention. I mean, this is an area where we know historic veins like this can yield tens, even 100 plus million ounces. And yeah, Peñoles had this. Peñoles usually, if you follow Peñoles around, you're going to do well. I mean, they're focused on such high quality that they'll cast aside things that for anyone else are high quality. Okay, and I think seeing Peñoles here prior is actually a good thing. It's kind of like following Anaconda around or somebody like that. Usually, when you chase those kind of prospects, they're good ones. All right, but I think the next slide actually shows a long section of.
Yes, it does.
Yep. Okay, this is the Alacran. This caught my attention back a couple of years ago when I first started looking at the company. Look, there's stoping on a lot of these veins, but these things are very high grade. Some of these stopes, these blobs that you see here along these different levels. And this kind of vein system, when you start to see lengths, kilometer plus, and you think, okay, this is one of maybe 100 veins. If you go, we don't have to go back to the image, but if you scroll back through their deck, you'll see right away what I mean. There are literally dozens of veins, dozens of red lines on either side of this particular long section. Each one of them is going to have this kind of potential. Okay, so I really think this company has a Vizsla scale, this potential here. Yes, it's drill intense, but man, talk about a ripe area to go swing a drill. This is one that I would love to spend 2 or 3 years drilling targets like this.
Okay, so I guess in summary, then the company just gets their footing under them production wise, but at this higher price level, they should be doing that. Plus, bringing that Plomosas more online, where I think production just started there in the tail end of last year, and then go after exploration. I'll follow up with Fred Davidson and see what the plans are for exploration this year. Let's also move on to Silver X Mining. This is I guess, newer production company focused in Peru, focus being mostly at this Nueva Recuperata project. There's a bit of development and exploration potential here. I'll go straight to that slide. They talk a lot about silver and Peru generally as a country, but this is one that kind of stood out to me. What do you see? What's your take on Silver X?
Okay, look, I know Jose. I've talked to him for several years now. People got to understand he's a young guy. He's very ambitious. Putting together this land position is kind of a testament to that. I think he's one of the more ambitious up and coming Peruvian miners. And I think the guy's on the right track. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He definitely has a good concept of how to advance Nueva Recuperada. Here he's got three different production areas, and we can talk about those. I mean, basically, you can see over here. There's well, I guess with the center, the processing plant in the center. He's got this Tangana up in the top, and then he's got Plata down here in the lower right, and then red silver over here in the kind of lower leftish. Okay, this is a massive vein district. These are primarily intermediate sulfidation veins. What that means is they should have a very large vertical and lateral, expression to them. They are going to be base metal dominant. Silver grades are good. They're not super high, but they're pretty good. Okay, so I do think it's legitimate to call this a silver company, but they are zinc and lead primarily. And he's got every shot in the world here because the scale of this mill is a few hundred tons per day. He's got every shot in the world to really build an up and coming silver company. I would not be surprised that as he gets some legs underneath him. Like you said, it's a young company, but as he grows, he has his eyes on other targets out there, in Peru, but maybe also outside of Peru. And I think this guy's going to be a mover and shaker. I think he's going to be an acquirer rather than having somebody acquire him. All right.
So is that what you want to see then? You want to see him going out
Yes.
there and acquiring, or is there
Yes,
exploration potential around here?
we need these young bucks, Corey. I'm telling you, the mining industry needs these guys. I wish Jose all the luck in the world here, because if he can pull this off and really build, Silver X into a new mid-tier silver producer, which I think, like I said, I think he's got every shot in the world to do so, then this is really going to be the future of mining. Okay, I mean, this district is absolutely awesome. But again, it's that growth. People that have that kind of vision of growth, I really have to tip my hat to them. I admire them.
Well, and it's one step at a time, right? We see the revenue growth here and the overall production growth, but it is just in a way proving to the market, right? Because you look at the resource here, and it's a good resource, but it's a lot in inferred too. So, do you think that the company needs to bump up the inferred here into some of the measured and indicated just as they continue their production?
No, I don't. That's going to sound funny, but in this case, these are operating mines. They've been, operating off and on for a long time. And the history of them kind of dictates that, if you keep 2, 3 years of reserves ahead of you, you're not going to have problems, because the geology of these things lends to, continuity and, sufficient continuity to keep replacing tons year after year after year. I don't think it's wise for a company to go out and just drill the bejeebers out of something just for the sake of drilling it. As if they can keep 2, 3, 4 years of reserves ahead of them in a situation like this, I don't see that as a problem. It's a more efficient use of capital.
I want to talk about this Tangana mining unit then, because this is a potential major area of growth for the company as they outline here, and kind of this exploitation phase of vein one, projected infill drilling campaign. They have vein two here. They also have this brownfields exploration. Have you dove much into this Tangana mining unit?
I have. No, the way I would encourage people to think about this, first of all, notice that there are existing mines and stopes and stuff here. Okay, so the map on the lower left, you can see it more easily than the one over here on the right, but you can see the shafts and drifts and stuff. But then the black kind of irregular polygons there, those are areas that have been stoped. All right. In other words, they've extracted ores. Well, you can see they're drilling below the stopes there in the lower right where your cursor's pointing. Okay, this is how you develop these things. If you can keep, enough ore in front of you where all those pink and red dots are, okay, you're not going to have a problem here. Okay, a few 100,000 tons of ore, it is going to feed that mill for a long time. All right, I think the mill does, if memory serves, it's like 700 or 800 tons per day.
Yeah.
Right now, yes, it requires exploration. Is this like greenfields exploration? No, this is brownfields. This is basically drilling ahead of yourself to keep mindful. Okay, but this district is going to yield. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see without drilling every single vein here. It it doesn't take a genius to see that this thing is a big district. And if they can kind of scale up their production, if they can grow production, start pulling ore from multiple veins and stopes and whatnot, so that they can build this thing into a mid-tier producer. I think this company's got a very good future ahead of it. I know he's got ambition to pour some CapEx in here for a new processing facility. I talked to him about that, I think 2 or 3 months ago. You know what? This is the time you want to do something like that, because yeah, look at the IRR and this thing is very, very handsome. Okay,
Yeah,
but
well, I wanted to move down to that PEA too. This is again that Tangana mining unit.
well,
This is kind of the growth that the company is outlining, and overall the costs are not that high, right? Initial capital 61 million, sustaining capital including closure costs 143 million, but the after-tax IRR there 39%. So this does seem like the near-term growth for the company.
mhm. That's precisely right. He's hungry and he wants to grow. And this is a good project to capitalize in an uptaking silver market here. So I see this company, being in a good position to take advantage of, hopefully a higher equity price, but more access to capital, which is really what's killed the mining industry for the past couple of years, is a lack of capital. But if he pulls this off and gets this thing scaled up to 2,200 tons a day, this is going to be a big ding dang producer. Okay. At that rate, they should be at the grades you see here, they should be producing, a few million ounces of silver per year. And that's going to kind of catapult them into the ranks of, other mid tiers, like Fortuna and, First Majestic and stuff like that. And that's where I think Jose wants to take this. He wants to build that next mid tier silver mining company.
Growth, right? And they have some of that near-term growth outlined there. Should we talk at all about this gold project? The company really only has one slide on it, but it is within their portfolio. So does this entice you at all?
It is. I mean, it's very interesting. This is a bit different system. My recollection after talking, I think I talked to Jose about this back in February. Look, it's more of a high sulfidation system, or it's in that kind of realm. Um, he he's very keen on this as an exploration target, but this is where you got to kind of watch your spend, because if you spend all your money on this when you're trying to develop yourself as a mid-tier silver producer, it can lead to some confusion. And I think, I might be speaking out of turn, but I think if I read Jose right, there's even room that for spinning something like this out in a good market. Okay, so like if the market improves, I wouldn't be surprised to see this asset end up in Spinco from SilverX. Now, what would it, if that happened, what would it mean? Well, it'd probably mean that shareholders get a dividend in the form of this gold asset. It looks like a strong gold asset. The dome structures here are similar to what I've seen in other high sulfidation systems. Yanacocha and Barina and stuff. Basically these are intimate with shallow magmatism, and you get a lot of disseminated mineralization, so you can end up with a bulk tonnage target in these settings. It has, if it's oxidized, even better. Okay, like it can be heap leached or processed more easily. But this is exploration target that is just a value add, but hopefully not a distraction for SilverX.
Okay. Well, it does, again, just really seem like this Tangana mining unit is moving forward. There is some exploration the company can do. This is a good slide that just shows what the overall plans are here and the growth potential. So everyone feel free to stop the video on this slide if you want to dive in, or check out the SilverX Mining website where you can read over that full presentation. Let's move on to the last company here. Capitan Silver. Now, this is I guess, much smaller exploration company. It's actually been very slow on the news front, considering the only news announced this year was a financing that was upsized and closed for $2 million. The last exploration update I could find was issued in May of last year. So, Quinton, this is much more of an explorer. What do you know about Capitan?
Well, to be frank, when you told me we were going to talk about this, I had to do some research because I didn't know it. Okay. But I did have a look at the deck. And look at, this is one of these silver companies that could be, I would say it's more of an acquisition target than it is, a growth company. Like, in other words, whatever they find here is probably going to be desirable by a silver producer, something like that. They're not necessarily the kind of, it's not got the critical mass that I see to become, say, like SilverX, where it could propel itself to become the next, Fortuna or something like that. Okay, but it is a very interesting story, and the grades are pretty good.
It,
It's a bit interesting geologically. If you want to, advance the slides there, we can
Yeah,
talk
we'll
about
move
that.
down. There's a lot of share structure. This is a relatively new company, so 70 million shares outstanding, tightly held. There's
Tightly
the
held.
team.
Let's hope they keep it that way.
But yeah, well, everything starts off tightly held, doesn't it, Quentin? We've seen the way that goes.
Look, I
Here's
knew
the main project, that Cruz de Plata project.
here's the plot. Look, I know John Mark Sadi, so and I have a lot
Yep.
of respect for you. Look, this is in Durango. This is in this major silver belt of Mexico, so it's kind of up in the northwest, um, part of Mexico. There are a lot of districts through here that have basically produced, silver and base metal for decades, if not centuries. Okay, and that's the way you should think about a project like this. This is one of many, many systems, intermediate sulfidation or slash epithermal systems that we know of through this part of Mexico. And importantly, these systems often were where the great Mexican mining companies started. Okay, so if recollection serves, I think Peñoles had a start here.
So Quentin, let's take a look down a little bit lower here, because there was some historic production, there was some past drilling. This was between 2021 and 2014. Here's geology, and then here's some of the recent drill results from 2021 to 2022. I just want to ask you, we always hear high grade. Everyone says high grade. This is a wide variation of grade, especially when you go into the narrow intercepts up to the longer intercepts. What do you consider high grade? What's the kind of, let's call it, gram meter width that you like to put on and consider something high grade?
Well, I want to be cautious about that per se, because you can have skinny high grade or fat high grade. So it's not necessarily about just the gram meter width per se, but it's about the resulting grade. I would, like me personally, when I hear silver high grade, 20 ounce plus is usually kind of my high grade bar. And you do see that in many of these. Okay, these are all quoted in grams per ton. But if you use, 31.1 divided into these numbers, you can see there's a lot of them here that will generate over 20 ounce per ton. Okay, so yeah, this is definitely high grade. It's higher grade than the previous two stories that we talked about, for what it's worth. And look, this is a known this Jesus Maria vein is a known high grade producer. This is the one that Peñoles cut their teeth on way back in time. Okay, so these guys are basically coming in and exploring an already known vein in this case, and it is in places it's bonanza grade. There you go. So you
What
can
about
see
this revised interpretation? We hear a lot about new companies coming out and saying they have a new way of looking at a project, especially one that has this much history. What do you take away from this interpretation?
this is where it gets important. So first thing I'd point out to people is the scale. Okay, in the previous two companies, both Impact and Silver X, if you look at the scale of those properties, they're many square kilometers. In fact, 100 plus square kilometers in each case. Okay, in this one, the scale bar down there's 500 meters, right? So basically, each one of those squares that's defined by the greens and red lines is 500 by 500. That would be 25 hectares. Um, not bad. I mean, that's a few square kilometers here that we're looking at, but it's not huge either. Okay, in other words, we're not seeing necessarily the full district here. We're seeing just the postage stamp that these guys have within the district. Now, the veins do have some strike length to them. Each one of these veins is over 1 kilometer long, and that's great. I mean, you can develop lots of targets and hopefully find lots of ore on structures like this. But again, this is why I say this company is likely going to be something that's going to be acquired in a hot silver market rather than, building enough critical mass here, because they don't have a huge sandbox to explore in. Now, that said, they've got some very good results here. They've portrayed this pretty well in the long sections they have. There you go. Any of these long sections we can stop and talk to.
I was going to go down to the resource here, but here, yeah, we can go to some of these long sections. There's a comparison to Vizsla, but
Yeah,
here's one.
so yeah, like let's do the comparison to Vizsla, because I think this is important. Okay, so go down. There we go. All right. Okay, so look, you can see here they've drilled the Jesus Maria vein, the El Refugio vein. It's all really one of the same vein. And they've got some really nice, like I said, bonanza grades, bona fide bonanza grades. They got plus 5,000 gram meter intercepts in there, the dark purple. And, around it, they've got a pretty broad halo of pretty good grades. So, yes, it does have an expression like we see over here in Vizsla. Now, the catch is that Vizsla has umpteen of those kind of veins. They're more like impact silver, where they have just one vein after another across the property, and most of those veins show a profile like this, whereas these guys have maybe 3 or 4 veins on their property. Okay, so you got to remember, yes, the scale of this particular drawing similar sense of high grade, but Vizsla is going to have a district, whereas these guys are going to have kind of a vein or two.
Well, and one thing to consider too here, they're comparing it to Napoleon, which Napoleon was one of the early on discoveries of Vizsla. Vizsla has moved not past that, but has built on that with some of the higher grade areas like Copala that has really carried the grade. But again, just a nice early on comparison. I do want to ask you about the resource though, because look, it's a bit of a blend. We have the silver resource here, and then we have this gold zone that's right beside. How do you look at a resource like this?
Well, look, the gold zone is a bit of a head scratch. It's a big low grain thing. Okay, it's a little less than half a gram per ton. In cross section, if I remember right, like there's a boundary, okay, between the sedimentary rocks, which actually hosts the Jesus Maria system. Okay, the sedimentary rocks, they host these. They call them replacement veins. And I think effectively what they are is they're not quite mantos, but they're similar. There's fractures or structures that cross the sedimentary rocks, and they host veins. All right, probably intermediate sulfidation to, well, we'll call them intermediate sulfidation veins. They're base metal silver veins, and then you have this weird red herring right next door, El Capitan or Capitan, that is a low grade oxide gold deposit. Are they related? Probably. This Capitan zone is likely associated with shallow volcanism, kind of like I talked about back in the Silver X story, that it's a gold target that's kind of in the mix, if you will. I wouldn't like they're not compatible metallurgically, so I wouldn't see these as being part of an overall operation. But could you make a heap leach out of 0.46, 20 million tons? Yeah, that could make a pretty decent little heap leach. All right, so there's upside there. I would say most of the prize though is in this high grade vein system.
Okay. Again, still very early on here for the company here. A couple value drivers. This is an early on exploration play. I guess the people are watching it because they sent it in to us for us to talk about here, Quinton. So thank you very much for taking time and talking through these 3 stocks. I'll be having you back on in another couple of weeks, and we'll chat again about more of the companies that everybody is sending in. Quinton, I really appreciate your time. It gives me a lot of benefits to talk through some of these stories with you, all the talk that we do before and after these calls. So everyone, please keep sending me in the companies you want Quinton and I to talk about. We'll keep talking about them on Stock Talk. Quinton, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Corey.